This is a training session for assessors new to the system. You'll be given a username and password to log in. That username and password will be unique to you. The very first time you enter the system, it may ask you to select a new password that you remember. If for any reason you forget this password, please use the forgotten password link to send you a new password so that you can access the system. The e-portfolio is designed. This is a training session for an assessor new to the system using VQManager, the e-portfolio from Skillwise. When you are first set out, you're given a username and password, which is given to you by your centre administrator from the business. This is a training session for an assessor. When you first set out using the e-portfolio, you will be given a username and a password by your centre administrator. Please enter your username and password in the boxes provided and press Login. If for any reason you forget your password, please click on the Forgotten Your Password link and you will be emailed a new password to log into the system with. Once you've logged in, you'll be given a training session for a new assessor using VQManager. You'll be given a username and password by your centre administrator, and please enter the details into the boxes provided. If you forget your password for any reason, please use the Forgotten Your Password link. You will be emailed a new password to access the system with. Once you have logged on, you'll be presented with this page. You can see I'm an assessor. It says my name followed by, in brackets, an assessor, and it will also record my system number on the system. There are 4 main tabs that you'll be working through. The home area is where you work with all of your learners. My learners is where you work specifically with a learner, loading evidence, etc. Assessment tools is where you can create assessment plans, and reports is where you can go and look at reports for all of your learners that have been added to your centre. In the messaging tab, which is the first one that it always opens up on, there will be messages here from Skillwise. So if for any reason the system is down for any period of time, we will enter with advance warning when the system will be unavailable. If there are any messages from your centre, specifically to you, you will also find them in this area here. If you don't wish to see those messages again, please put a tick in the box and then this information will be hidden. The very first thing that you might look at is anything that you might have to do. So the To-Do tab is basically your in-tray. Everything within the in-tray has to be actioned, and it's divided into different sections based on the kind of information that has been sent across to you. Evidence resubmitted following action, unassessed evidence, unsubmitted evidence, unassessed questions, emails awaiting further processing, up and coming progress reviews are just some examples of things that you may find in your To-Do tab. In the Information tab, which is the next one along, it's basically anything that is recorded in there is for your information only and does not necessarily require any action. So you'll see examples of evidence awaiting action by learner. So this may be something that you as an assessor have returned to your learner and you're waiting for the learner to do whatever action it was before they resubmit it to you. If you've got any new internal verifier reports, certainly within the last 30 days, they will also be recorded in this area underneath. The Learner Progress Summary gives you an outline of the name of your learner, any qualifications they're doing, how far through the qualification they are, the start date, end date, and based on the speed that they're currently going and the number of criteria that they've submitted, the number of days they're likely to be on programme. Any learner that has been assigned to you will be listed down here. In the My Learners area, this is where you first go to start working with your learner. The very first thing that you might do is you might assign units to your learner. So if we take an example of Patrick in this particular example, and we would look at the ERR qualification that has been assigned, it only has one unit, and we would like to allocate that unit to our learner. You can do that for any or all of the qualifications as you're working through them. Every time you complete an action on a page, you must use the blue arrows at the bottom to either save or cancel your work. There are other options. As we go through the different pages, you will see the different options that you can select when you get to the bottom. But if you move away from this page without selecting one of the blue arrows, any work that you do on the page will not be saved. So in this particular instance, we're going to save it. The pop-up says that rules or combinations may apply to this qualification. Please make sure that your unit allocations comply with the rules for those specific qualifications. Unit assignments have now been saved, so I'll OK that. The next thing I might do is I might create an assessment plan for my learner. So any assessment plans that I've created and applied to my learners will be located in this area here. The actual assessment plans are created in the Assessment Tools tab, and we'll come on to that shortly. The next thing we might do is we might log evidence for my learner. So I'll create some evidence for my learner Krista. The evidence methods are specific to your centre, and you select whichever method or methods is appropriate or are appropriate for your particular piece of evidence. So this may well be a direct observation which incorporates some professional discussion or perhaps oral questions. The summary evidence description is a short title of what that evidence relates to. So it could be making a bed. This field is compulsory, so you must write something in this particular field. The description of evidence field is also compulsory. You can see there's a maximum of 400 characters, 4,000 characters, which is approximately 700 words that can be entered into this ever increasing in size box. You will be advised how many characters you have left when you are working in this particular box. So you can use this area for entering details of exactly what you've seen, what you've done with the learner, any questions that you might ask, any criteria that you feel that should be mentioned in this particular area here. Or if you are attaching a document, you can perhaps write "See attached." And then in the next section, you can upload any number of files in respect of this particular piece of evidence. You would browse for a piece of evidence, find the evidence, open it, and then upload the file. Numerically, my question marks normally say 4 files and 100 megabytes. 100 megabytes is the maximum size document that you can add to a piece of evidence. If your piece of evidence or file is greater than 100 megabytes, you must use some kind of compression to reduce the size of that document in order to upload it. You can upload as many documents as you like, one after the other, but you can only upload 4 at any one time, and so long as the total size of the files that you're uploading does not exceed 100 megabytes, they will upload. Your average broadband speed will take 15 minutes to upload a file that is 100 megabytes in size. So please don't panic if your file does not upload immediately. Once you've uploaded the evidence, you can find the qualification to which that evidence relates, and using the plus arrows down at the bottom, you can tick off any criteria that has been met by this particular piece of evidence. You'll see that I'm able to tick off Unit 201 in my diploma. I can also tick off any other units in my diploma if I wish. Any learning outcome I can map into this particular piece of evidence. This sign up here is a quick tick, and it will populate all of the boxes underneath this particular assessment criteria. A quick tick, and this one next door is a quick untick, which will remove them again. You'll also see other qualifications that are available when you're loading a piece of evidence. So if, for example, you're uploading a health and safety piece of evidence and it also crosses into perhaps some ERR criteria as well, you can open up that qualification as well and tick off any other criteria in any qualification that evidence relates to. Once you've mapped all of the criteria, you can then write your comments in the box below. These comments are visible to the learner. I mentioned previously there's more than one arrow at the bottom, and in this particular example we can save and submit this piece of work for verification. So we're happy for it to move across and be verified at any point because we've finished with it. Or we can return it to the learner for action. So if there's something that we need to add to this particular piece of evidence, perhaps return it to the learner and ask them to upload a document. We can click on Return to Learner for Action. This will then present this piece of evidence to your learner in their To Do tab. They will have to work on it and then return it to you. Whilst it's with the learner, you'll locate it in the Information tab, and once the learner has completed the work, it will disappear from the Information tab and reappear in your To Do tab. The third option is you can save and continue later, and that's, for example, where we haven't quite finished mapping this particular piece of evidence, or we want to write some more information in the assessor comments, but we don't have any time. If we save and continue later, this piece of evidence won't be moved to a state where the IV can actually verify it. It will be put in our To Do tab, waiting for us to open it up again at a later stage, finish the work, and then submitting for verification or returning to learner as we wish. So we are going to save and submit for verification this piece of work. That piece of work has now been saved, and it can now be located in the evidence list. It's this one here, so if I click on processing, it allows me to view or reassess that piece of work. I can reassess it at any point if it tells me in this area here that I can reassess it. It's been sent for verification but has not yet been verified, so if later on today or perhaps next week I think of some more criteria that can be met by this particular piece of evidence, I can go back in, reassess that piece of evidence. If I select that, it will open up the log evidence page, and I can tick off any criteria, I can add any documents, I can change any of the wording, and then resubmit it for verification again. If that piece of work has been verified when we return to it, it will have a view only wording within that particular box. And as you can see by my hover over, it says internal verifier has verified the piece of work and sent it to the external verifier. If we do wish to reopen up that piece of work again, we can't open up that exact piece because it's been verified, but we can use the reuse button underneath. And if we reuse the evidence, it duplicates that log evidence page exactly, with the exception of it doesn't pull through any criteria. So if we click on the reuse evidence, it will pull through, so it will have my ticks that I selected, anything that I wrote in the summary, anything I wrote in the evidence, any attachments that I've attached, but you'll see that no criteria has pulled through at all. So this is where I would then go in and select the criteria that technically is the additional criteria, but it's creating a new piece of evidence. Again, in my assessor comments, I would write my comments there, which is for viewing for the learner, and save and submit for verification. So it's produced a second piece of evidence, almost identical, but has slightly different criteria involved in it. There's the piece of evidence that looks virtually the same as the piece of evidence I viewed down here. The next thing we might do is we might look at our matrix. So this is the unit status. It tells us the start date and end date for the learner's qualification, overall completion of the qualification to date, credit values, etc. And then it lists all of the units that have been assigned to this particular learner, what their credit value is, how far through each of those different units are in a percentage. If we hover over them, it will tell me that 20 out of 20 criteria have been met for that unit. If I hover over this one, it will tell me that 4 out of 9 criteria for that particular unit have been met. The other columns will show me when that unit was assigned to the learner, whether or not I, as the assessor, have signed it off. I can, when I sign off a unit, I can request that my learner confirms that they've seen that I signed the unit off and any comments that I've written on there. If that was the case, a date would be in here for when the learner actually signed that particular unit. If that unit had been verified by my IV or my IQA, we'll have a date in here, and also the name of the IV or IQA that signed off that particular unit. If I, as the assessor, wanted to sign off a unit, I would select a unit, assuming that this one is 100% complete. I would select the unit, view progress and sign off, and that would take me to the matrix, which would show me all of the evidence. It would show me all of the assessment criteria had been met. In this particular example, we know it's only 44% through, but we would come here in the summative assessment. I would sign off this particular unit and sign also the 2 declarations underneath. I confirm the student has completed competency, and also if I wanted to get confirmation from the learner to confirm the 2 units has been completed, I can send that across to them as well. If I wish to have a look at any evidence comments that I'd written about any of the evidence that I'd assessed for that unit, I would select evidence comments, and a pop-up would show me any comments that I made for any of the evidence that I'd assessed for that particular unit. I would then save that particular unit, and it would mark that unit as signed off. In the same way, I can sign off a qualification as an assessor. So I would look at my qualification that I wanted to sign off, put a dot in the radio button, view progress and sign off, and it would take me to a very similar view to the one that we've just seen in the unit sign off. It would show me all of the units. Assuming that all of these units were 100% complete, I would be then happy as the assessor to write my summative assessment again and sign off this particular unit. I'd also put a tick in the box to declare that the candidate has achieved all the requirements for the units listed, and save it. That would then sign off the qualification. It would send it through to the internal verifier for them to sign off the qualification if they're happy. In the same way that as an assessor you can return something to the learner and then the learner completes the work and resubmits it to you, the IV or the IQA can also do exactly the same thing, where if you sign off a piece of evidence, a unit or a qualification, if the IV is unhappy with that work or they need you to do something extra, they can return that piece of work or that unit or that qualification to you with some comments on there. Any comments that the IV writes in their comments box are not visible to the learner, they are only visible to you as the assessor. If you wish to upload anything to the e-portfolio at all that is not evidence, because evidence will be located in the log evidence and then the evidence list, you can record it in the learner activity log. So anything that is not evidence can be recorded in here. It can be phone calls that you make to the learners, it can be emails that you send to the learners. You can even record the assessment plans in here if you don't wish to use the assessment planning area in the system. You can also use this area here for recording progress reviews if you don't wish to use the progress reviews in the system or your centre has elected not to use those progress reviews. You can create a new log at any time. A learner can create logs and so can the IV. The categories that are selected here are specific to your centre, so you just select which one is relevant to you. You put a title of what that log is, and the date that the activity took place, so you use the calendar as such, And then in the activity detail, you again can write as much information as you wish in that particular area there. If you wish to associate any guided learning hours with any of the work that you did against this particular one, you can select a qualification which needs the guided learning hours recorded against it, if it's applicable to your centre. Again, you can attach any number of documents in support of this particular activity log if you wish, and then once you've completed, you can save it. Any saved activity logs will be recorded in the previous logs area above. At any time, you can go in and edit an activity log. You can make any changes that you wish to this particular area, and any changes that you do make will be found in the audit trail, and there will be a record of those changes that you make to that activity log. The assessor, the learner and the IV can amend any activity log that's existing, and it will indicate which of those users has made amendments to those activity logs. Assessment tools. Within the assessment tools area, there is a file library, and you can upload any document you like to your file library. They can be records of template documents that you use as centre. They can be underpinning knowledge that you use regularly with the learners, perhaps a question bank that you use. You can record all that information in here. You add the files to the file library in exactly the same way, browse and then upload the files. Again, there's still a 100 megabyte maximum limit for anything that goes into the file library. In the internal verifier assessor feedback reports, it does exactly what you think it's going to do. That's where you will locate internal verifier reports, and the external one is where you will find any external verifier reports in that area too. We want to create a new assessment plan template for a learner. There are two options available to us. We can create an assessment plan that is not linked to any qualifications. And an example of a template like that might be an induction template, whereby we might call it induction paperwork. And we can again write all sorts of notes in there. So it might be see, attach, and read. We would link files from the file library. So we may well have in this particular area here, health and safety documents, equality and diversity, appeals procedure, anything like that, and we can attach as many documents as we wish to that particular assessment plan. That assessment plan is now located in the View, Edit and Apply. It's located in the assessment plans not linked to any criteria, and it was the induction paperwork one that we've just completed. We can now apply it to any or all of our learners if we wish by clicking on that document there. And it will list all of the learners that we have available to us, and we can apply this assessment plan to all of our learners if we wish. If we want them to acknowledge that they have seen this assessment plan and agreed to it and agreed to the timescales, we would put a tick in this box here. If we just want to send the assessment plan across to the learner but we don't need them to confirm it, we would put a tick in this box here. If we would like the learner to receive an email to say, go and look at your e-portfolio, a new assessment plan has been uploaded by your assessor, we would put a tick in the box here. You can see that these are currently all greyed out, and that's because I don't have a valid email address for any of the learners in this particular area. The assessment plan is a generic one, it's a template, so it was called induction paperwork. We can change this if we wish. And we have to set a target date for this particular assessment plan, so it might be that we give them a couple of weeks to look at it. The notes have pulled through from our template, and if we want to, we can add more notes to this particular area if we wish. We can see the links from the file library, and on my previous template I added these two documents. If I wanted to, I could add a further document to this particular template if I wish. And then I can apply it to the learners. This will then drop that assessment plan into all of those learners' e-portfolios. So if I was to go back to my learners and look in the assessment plans, in the assessment plans not linked to criteria, induction paperwork, change if we wish, this is the one that I just assigned to my particular learner, and I can look at that at any particular time. If I'd signed off this assessment plan, I would have a green tick as indicated down here. If I wish to create an assessment plan that's linked to a qualification, I would go to Create New Assessment Plan, and then I would find the qualification to which I wish to create an assessment plan template. I select a unit for which this template is relevant. I can select as many units as I wish, and then I can select whichever criteria this task or activity or action plan that I have for my particular learner entails. Again, I can tick them manually, or I can use the quick tick, which will populate all of them. At any time, I can untick any of those criteria. So I've selected some criteria, and then I will give my assessment plan a name. So this one could be Serving a Customer. Again, I can write any number of notes in this particular area if I wish, or again, I can write See Attached, and then I can add the document again from the file library if I wish. So in this particular case, I might only attach one of them. If I click on the assessment criteria, it pulls through the criteria that I ticked to say, if completed, this assessment plan will hopefully meet these criteria with the learners. In the second set of boxes there, I can write in plain English what I might like the learner to do to actually meet that particular criteria. So if it is a little bit vague about a particular assessment criteria, you can write specifically what kind of task or activity, if completed, may meet that particular criteria for that learner. And then we would save the assessment plan. Again, the assessment plan can be located or be found in the View, Edit and Apply. And for this particular one, we were looking at the Diploma Level 2. So this is our assessment plan, Serving a Customer. And if we select it, once again, we can view it, edit it, delete it, or apply it to our learners. Now, the assessment plan process will not allow you to allocate an assessment plan to a learner who has not been given that qualification and not been given that particular unit. So it doesn't allow you to misallocate an assessment plan. We know that because in this area here, the title is Additional Unit Assignments Required. Now, that means that all of these learners here have not been given Unit 210 for this qualification, and therefore we can't assign this assessment plan to any of these learners. Physically won't allow us to do it because, again, all the boxes are greyed out. So we need to make sure that we're creating assessment plans in the first place for correct qualifications, and then make sure that the relevant units have been assigned to our learners to allow us to attach the assessment plans to those learners. If all of these learners need to be assigned Unit 210, you can go back to My Learners, Unit Assignments, and attach those particular units to these learners, then come back here again and assign this particular assessment plan to all of the relevant learners. The final tab is the Reports tab. If you need to contact the learner for any reason, there's a Learner Contact Details report, and most reports you can view or download. Download will drop it into Excel, View Report will just show it within the ePortfolio itself. The Progress tab has got several options. The Matrix Although that you could see the matrix in the My Learners unit sign-off tab, that would only show you a matrix for a particular unit. If you select evidence matrix in this area here, it will show you the matrix for the whole qualification. So you select the whole qualification, and for every single unit, it will show you how far through the learner is and what matrix and what criteria has been selected within the matrix itself. It's also got a unit sign-off report, so you can have a look again at which units have been allocated to the learners for which qualification, which ones have been signed off, which ones have been IV'd, which ones have been EV'd. Again, this one allows you to download it or view it. There's also a middle option, which is download the report by percentages only. And if I just select that one, I'll give you an example of what that one looks like. Again, it will just come into an Excel spreadsheet. And it will show you who the learner's name is, which units they've been assigned, and how far through each of the units they are. So this is 20% through the qualification, 10% through Unit 201, 44% through 202. So if you just need to see from a very quick view of how far through each of the units your learners are, that's a very good report to look at. If you're recording guided learning hours, you can then see for all your learners, all your qualifications, how many guided learning hours have been associated with their work. And if you wish to see a gap analysis for a particular learner, you can select either all qualifications or a specific qualification, and then if you view the report, it will just pull through the criteria that you have not yet hit the recommended minimum number of times. The recommended minimums are set by your lead IV for that particular qualification in your own centre, and that's normally led by an awarding body's instruction. The qualification tracker report shows you either in a view or a download view. It will show you how all your learners are getting on, and it shows you it in a very visual way. Green means that they are on target to finish by their expected end date. Red means they're likely to overshoot their expected end date. White means that they've normally not started that particular qualification. So you're able to see in that particular report their employer, if you're adding employer, qualification, how far through the qualification they currently are, whether or not any of those qualifications have been signed off, how many days they've been on programme, and also the target start date and end date. And the month on month will give you a calculation of what that learner's progress was from month to month. So if a learner did another 8% of their portfolio in June, it would show 8%. The usage report will show you which of your learners are logging on and using the portfolio and which ones aren't. So it will be able to show you very quickly, once you've given them training, who's logging into the system and who hasn't. If at any time you need any extra support, by hovering over any of the tabs, you'll get an indication of what that tab is for. On most critical pages, you have a help for this page, which is a hyperlink, and that's an audio video that will show you what that page is used for, what you're likely to find on it, etc. And there's also help and training for you. So if you click on that area there, this takes you to the manual. It's broken down into two areas. One, which is the full manual, which you can download if you wish, or you can separate it into lots of different sections. So if you're only particularly looking at how do I check on my learner's progress, you would select that, and then it will take you to an audio of how you would find that information. Press continue, and then it tells you that you are able to find it in the to-do area. You can use the arrow at the bottom and it will take you through a faster show of all the different places where you can find the progress for your learner. In addition, there is a website, which is our company website. On the home page of the Skillwise website, on the right hand side, there's existing customer support and training. If you click on the support there, it will take you to this username and password login. The username is VQManager. The password is balloon, BALLOON, login. This has got downloads and resources. This is where you will have found the training video, top tips, and as an assessor, you can click on the assessor area and it will take you to a whole ream of support documents that will help you use the system in full. We talked about reusing evidence, and if we select that particular one, it will open up a document and show us on the evidence list page if a piece of evidence has been locked and we want to reuse it, we can use that particular button underneath there to reuse the evidence. Your learners can also come here and find some information on how to use the ePortfolio as well. So please do give them the username and password, VQManager balloon. If you forget your username and password, please contact the Centre Administrator for the company that you work in. Thank you.